Maximum Action is an incredibly fun 30 minutes or so of playtime, with excellent gameplay, gunplay, and 80s action movie laden atmosphere, but that's about it. In fact, after the first few times I played through the select handful of levels on offer and tried the survival modes, I sort of forgot about the game for several months before reinstalling it to check if it finally got any new content, or went the way of so many other early access games. Well, I am glad to say that there is some new content here, more so than there was the last time I played the game. However, I can also say that it's not enough to cover the period of time that I've waited for any new content. The two major level overhauls and the ability to spawn weapons and enemies doesn't really scream that they are putting in maximum effort into giving people who bought the game early what they paid for. Honestly, the game is incredibly fun, but what it comes down to is a game that is more style than substance, with blatant scenes lifted directly from Hong Kong cinema and 80s and 90s action films. I wouldn't mind this if the game had more meat, but it really doesn't. I know the appeal of the game is allowing you to put your shoes into your very own action movie, but the whole ability to watch a playback of your gameplay is undercooked, and there is no cohesion to any of the levels progression-wise. I wouldn't have a problem with this being sold as a tech demo, but it's still $15, and unless you plan on replaying the game over and over and over again, it will take you less than 30 minutes to play through the entire roster of levels and all the content on offer. There is no story, characters, or real progression, just you, a bunch of relatively brain-dead enemies, and lots of guns. Guns feel good to shoot, they sound good to shoot, and enemies are fun to blow apart. It just lacks the glue that games like Fear, and even the free demo to Ping 2 have, which kept me coming back to those over and over again. Each of the levels look really nice, but if you don't like the crusty retro aesthetic in general, this won't win you over. The color schemes for the most part is naturally neon colors, but the later half of levels are bland browns and grays, and this makes the game look as bad as it does without the aesthetic. It's also more noticeable that the levels clearly not based on any specific movie have the least amount of attention or detail put into them. They are just incredibly bland environments and lack any sort of charm. When the levels are emulating movies, you naturally have the token hard-boiled level, which I will give props to whoever named it. Then you have a whole host of other homage-riddled levels that are over in under a minute. You have the ability to dual-wield weapons, jump around, and go into bullet time, and again, the gameplay is great, but the levels are so incredibly linear with no narrative, and the enemies will react and behave the same way each time. Plus, it doesn't help that outside of maybe a heavy weapon enemy here and there, or a boss enemy with slightly more health, there is no real variety in enemies outside their designs, which are incredibly stock. There was a healthy variety of guns though, and I enjoyed trying each of them out. I just wish that the variety was shown off more, as I found to access half the weapons, I would have to try something like the bland survival mode, or spawn them in using the cheat console the game tells you about when loading each level. The game's performance has thankfully gotten a maximum overhaul since the last time I played, as while it's still extremely buggy, it also finally runs at mostly a stable frame rate at max settings on my RTX 2060. While they have seemed to fix a lot of the crust and issues that were here, there is still plenty to iron out, and you could also call this game maximum jank. The music was pretty good, filled with throwback synth and action-oriented tracks, and it fit the action fairly well. Although, if you want the full experience, put on something like Turbo Killer, mute the in-game music, and there you go. But hey, at least the in-game music is nice on its own. The gun sounds and other various bits of audio still need some work, but they weren't grating or annoying, just not completely polished. With all that said, I don't dislike Maximum Action, but I do wish that not only would the base price be dropped down to under $10, but I also wish the game would be worked on more often, since there really isn't all that much here. If you're looking for a game like this to play in the meantime before this is finished, go play Ping 2 unless you really want to support the devs of Maximum Action. There is some fun here to be had, but nothing worth the amount you could easily go get better, more complete games for at this moment. Save your money and wait till it finally releases, if that ever actually happens. As always, if you want to help support the channel, please consider sharing the video with a friend or checking out my Patreon linked in the description below. If you have any comments, questions, or recommendations, leave them down below as I read and reply to everything. Until next time, this is Thierry Williamson signing off until the next video. See ya guys!